I once tried to take a haiku writing class by correspondence before we had video chat and email in our pockets. This is different. Everything is different. Working class history is my family's history, is the history of humanity. Every chapter parallels to now. We weave the threads and we see our future also. First class, Jamaica Kincaid writing about Carl Linnaeus, whose surname was taken from the linden tree in their village. A friendly wave from non-class life, little leaf linden with the edible leaves planted at our urban food forest. We name things to know them. We name things to own them. How to read a book that isn't a novel. Instrumental jazz as white noise, Philip Glass symphony, lots of breaks, stretches, chocolate. Read outside in the dappled sun, throw sticks for the dog, read another chapter. What we have learned. Workers gave us the American Revolution. Without workers, the founders couldn't act. They would have been speaking to themselves. We can give ourselves another revolution if we want it. The resistance of the enslaved, not so different from the resistance of today. Work slowdowns, breaking tools on purpose, feigned illness, feigned ignorance, feigned forgetfulness, using religion as chains, using religion as hope. Having missed all of this, is it any wonder that the Confederacy didn't even consider what enslaved people would do when all the Southern white men went off to war? Labor versus monopoly in the Gilded Age could be a modern-day headline. We went astray when we left craft work for corporate work. This current pandemic work market, a reversal of sorts, a correction, millions quitting their jobs to be self-employed again, to be in charge of their time again. No wonder the burden for self-employment is so obvious at tax time. It is always in their best interest that we take wage jobs. One day in October, I killed a snake. Please don't tell Bill. He'll think I did it on purpose. But sometimes we kill without thinking. And though I have no love for snakes, really no love at all, I wasn't thinking of the snake at the time. My brain was in between, transitioning from work to not work, to everything but work. I was driving home. In the mornings, I'm much more me. I slow down to avoid raccoons, deer, skunk, possum, cat. I'm not numb, sore, tired. I am present. The only snake I really want to kill is slithering its way, oily, slimy, sliding through our northern waters. This was just a tiny snake, a line on the street that I recognized too late to swerve. Working class history is my family history. Dad, Peter, Clinton Corn Processing Plant, later bought out by ADM, grain millers Local 6, until a year-long strike that I was too young to remember ended in decertification. Just like his wartime, he doesn't talk about the strike. I still know very little about his time in Vietnam. He drove a truck, ate tiny sweet bananas, and once went fishing with hand grenades. I remember the swing shifts, graveyard shifts, tiptoeing around to let him sleep during daylight, sun-blocking shades on all the windows. I remember Dad being so tired, working all night, sleeping all morning, then waking up at noon to take me canoeing at Rock Creek. I remember Dad so tired that his eyes were red-rimmed and half open, and we still went to the spaghetti dinner at Rastrelli's. Mom, Mary, beauty school, once dyed her hair blonde and created a family scandal by piercing her ears. Worked in hair salons for many years until doctors told her to find other work. Church secretary, senior activities planner. She once confessed that she hated to cook, which made me rethink my entire childhood. Grandpa Charles, Amalgamated Meat Cutters Local 431. When I was small, a visit to Kaup's Market. What a treat to go behind the counter. There was Grandpa in a stained white smock, white cap on his bald head, steel swinging from a chain on his belt, gleaming knives laid out on a towel. Grandpa John, steelworkers maybe, through his job at Alcoa. Railroad Engineers Union maybe, before the train yards shut down, but just as likely to have been a union worker. Great-Grandpa Joseph, listed on naturalization records as occupation truckman, arrived on a ship called Barbarossa, speaking only German, for a country then called Hungary, now part of Romania, founder of the Hungarian Club in Bloomington, Illinois. Great-Grandpa John, Carpenters Union, Local 772, and member of the Clinton Labor Congress. My memory is limited. A visit with Dad, check to see that the gas burners are off, then sit on the sticky vinyl glider on the back porch as Grandpa sings songs in German, laughs until he coughs, then spits tobacco into a coffee can. I thought he was spitting out all of his teeth. Great-great-grandpa Casper, dead at age 56, struck by a speeding passenger train while inspecting track. Newspaper article, a police report, obituary, pulp piece, all in one. Journalism in 1913, so different from today. Grandma Florence worked in Rich Toy Company, raised 12 children, never learned to drive. Grandma Helen, a file clerk at Curtis Brothers, a woodworking factory, briefly, raised 9 children and typed letters to everyone. If their grandmothers or their mothers worked, besides cooking, cleaning, gardening, bathing, feeding, farming, stocking, harvesting, killing, butchering, canning, there is no record of it. An abbreviated history of my working life. Summer babysitter, 14 years old, 2 children who had never been told no. I quit as a 15th birthday present to myself. Italian restaurant, salad bar attendant, first back of house job, forgetting about the eggs and boiling the pot dry, trying to remember which 10 items need replenished, learning how to use a knife, a slicer, a time clock, kitchen as sanctuary. College, a job in itself, keep moving, literally moving, 4 colleges in 5 years, English degree eventually. Was it worth all this work? Coffee shop and bookstore, Rock Island, across the bridge, first place of poetry readings and radical literature, and the unhoused man who sometimes came in to warm up. And once in a while, I had to tell him to stop muttering so loudly because he was scaring other customers. The best potato soup I've ever tasted, cooked by Reed, tall and blonde, turning gray, stained apron, more sauce than cloth. Perennial plants nursery, a crumpled hillside farm with limestone outcroppings, watering potted plants, pulling garlic mustard from acres of display gardens, hoop house full of hosta varieties, barn swallows swooping down, planting flowers in rich people's yards. The first time a boss has treated me as an equal, offered me a beer at the end of the day. South Minneapolis coffee house, barista, half the morning regulars worked at the Ford plant across the river. My home away from Minnehaha, Free State, from fear of arrest, from cold and paranoia. I would take the leftover coffee home in gallon pickle jars for the overnight security shift who always complained that it tasted like pickles. No, I don't want to take a walk around the lake after my shift. I don't care if it was your dad in the famous picture of the Teamster strike holding a baseball bat. Landscaping, brick by heavy brick, where I learned how to plant trees, where I met Louise, whose gardens we worked each season for years as she wrote in her 3rd-story office, and we took breaks to peruse her new bookstore down the block. University bookstore, holiday season, fulfilling orders for shot glasses and t-shirts and ridiculously priced stuffed animals they called gophers, but were really 13-lined ground squirrels. Another coffee house, South St. Paul, soups and sandwiches and mediocre coffee, around the block from SEIU Local 284, the place I worked when Wellstone died, and I heard it on the radio and cried in the back room. Native plant nursery, back to watering and weeding and carrying heavy things for the woodworker landlord because I was the strongest one on the crew, even though he looked behind me to see who else would be helping and found just me. Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity, AmeriCorps construction assistant, teaching volunteers the skills that I had just learned a day or week before, accepting strangers' prayers and laying on of hands, and freshly brewed, just roasted over a camp stove coffee, filtered through horsehair, served with popcorn. Another coffee shop where I learned what good coffee tastes like, baking scones and cinnamon rolls each morning with a break at 6 a.m. for a tiny cappuccino. The family farm in Wisconsin, old college friend, former Amish farm, chasing sheep at dusk, milking cows twice a day, sleeping in a vacant sawmill, food poisoning, and no pay. Eventually doing the math and deciding that 10 hours a week was fair labor for an occasional quart of milk and a place to park a camper. Organic cafe, farm-made ice cream, breakfast and sandwiches and soups with fresh local produce, but low wages. And my first time with an employer's camera in the workplace, owners partying all night, leaving wine glasses and bottles everywhere, dark sunglasses, bloodshot eyes. Music festival venue, campground, constant work in progress, orchard planted, gardens tended, permaculture classes and gatherings, oak seedlings fenced off from the crowd, which trampled the ground like a seasonal herd of bison, and we labored while someone else made all the profit. Food truck, self-employment, hippie music festivals, short order breakfast all day, ice cream, mini donuts, 18 hours days on my feet, cooking for festival goers, torn Achilles tendon, a way to profit after all, and sometimes we found edibles in the tip jar. Get the payment when they order, they may be too drunk to remember their own name later. And now, hospital kitchen. feeding patients in treatment and patients in need of psychiatric services, arguing with coworkers who say these aren't real patients because they aren't sick, as if the brain is not part of the body. Union steward in a dying hospital, being stripped of essential services, no ICU, no birthing unit, no overnight surgical stays. Escape to the walk-in freezer to cry out frustrations, pandemic healthcare work, essential work, sacrificial work. Wild Again Farm. I plant trees and flowers and feed birds and sit in the sunshine and take pictures of the clouds and the oak trees and the multicolored hazelnut leaves. And sometimes I sell a dozen eggs or trade a pound of hazelnuts for a pound of garlic. But the farm pays in other ways, in beauty and calm and rest. And sometimes I cry over predators in the chicken coop or deer destroying an apple tree or cousins gone too soon, memorial trees planted. Sometimes I cry over a frost or a snow or a wind. Sometimes the acorns hit me right on the top of the head, say, look up, say, pay attention, say, we were here first. Sometimes the mice steal half of the hazelnut harvest, and I find shoes in the closet under the stairs full of nuts. Sometimes the firewood sprouts golden oyster mushrooms, and the shiitakes are abundant, and we eat mushrooms all winter. And the real work happening the whole time. Activists in aprons cooking for action camps in Florida, New York, California, North Carolina, Germany, at ashrams and retreat centers and YWCA camps and old hippie communes for the Ruckus Society, Greenpeace, Students for a Free Tibet, rallies and marches and picket lines and strikes, Stop the Reroute, Families Belong Together, a lifetime of slogans. Like the time I flew to Beijing, spent my 31st birthday hanging a banner on the Great Wall, arrested, detained, deported. That was my work, my real work. Happy to be deported to Hong Kong. A month spent in a warehouse in West Oakland, cooking for and training activists to disrupt the 2008 Olympics, hang a banner on the Golden Gate Bridge, my real work. I'm no climber, I'm on the bridge deck. Group mugshot in construction trailer in Golden Gate Park. Our work, last minute trip to DC, telling our government to spend some money already. It's not like it's real, it's just money. Never forget that while we work to afford to live, we work even harder to create the world we want to live in. Chef K called me some months ago, wanted me to apply for the sous chef position. My lack of interest wasn't just the commute. I won't give up my union. And so I write on the backs of menus, around the edges of receipts, white napkin, brown paper towel, Sharpie or highlighter or grease pencil. And sometimes I step into the walk-in cooler just to breathe for a moment, relax, then back to the cook's line. I'm no miner, my work not so dangerous. My underground basement level department has a walkout patio, Lakeview cafeteria, sunrise shift. I have no children to feed, no lung ailment to die from or explosion to fear, but I have had days after mass shootings when I plan out escape routes, hiding places, weapons, shields. Could I make it into the utility room behind the boiler? Would it be enough? Is it ever enough? Maybe I will retire as a cook in a hospital, or as a poet farmer, or a poet activist, or activist cook, or poet cook. Maybe I'll return to craft work away from wage work, but I will always work. Our history does not end. We are the workers. We write our own future.